Hey everybody, it's Dr. Eric Balcavage. We're back for another edition of Thyroid Thursday, and today we're talking about HRT. Can it impact thyroid physiology? Now, this isn't a long discussion on HRT, the pros, the cons, so much. If you take HRT and you feel better on HRT, that is totally your choice. Do whatever makes you feel good. That is my thought process. But the question was asked, can HRT have an influence on thyroid physiology? So wanted to kind of go over that with people so they can get an understanding. So generally when we're talking about HRT, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, today I'll kind of focus on estrogen and progesterone. So estrogen and progesterone, when they're appropriately produced and appropriately regulated in the body, they work in conjunction with thyroid physiology. So when there's balance with the hormones and when we're in this low stress, what we call homeostatic state, these things work in conjunction with each other, and there's likely not a problem, okay? But when somebody has compromised detoxification pathways, excessive aromatization of androgens to estrogens, estrogen levels rise, or they take HRT, or they take some level of progesterone or progestin, yes, there is a possibility that those hormones that you're taking to treat your hormonal stuff could have an influence on your thyroid hormone production, thyroid hormone availability, and thyroid hormone conversion. So as estrogens increase in the body, one of the things we know is that as estrogens go up, so do these things called binding globulins. And these are essentially Uber drivers that bind to the hormone, transport that hormone around the body, and then they release the hormones and they become free. So all hormones are in a bound state and a free state. Cortisol, bound, free. Thyroid hormone, bound, free. Testosterone, bound and free. And so as somebody starts taking estrogen therapy, could that result in more binding globulins? Yes. And if you increase the binding globulins, you generally increase all binding globulins. And so you can have increased thyroid binding globulins. And this can result in lower levels of free T4. And if you have less available T4 that becomes free to get into the cells and tissues, then what can that result in? That can result in a loss or a reduction in total T3 and free T3. And it could even result in lower reverse T3. Now, there's a lot of people in the functional medicine space that the low reverse T3 is good, but it may not be good. If you see T3 and reverse T3 low and total T4 is normal and free T4 is a bit lower, it's maybe because the binding globulins are holding on to all of your thyroid hormones. So it's available in the blood, but it's not able to get free and get to the tissues, okay? So that's problem one. The problem two is that there's some thought that at the receptors inside the cells, estrogen and T3 can compete to some degree with receptor sites. So too much estrogen in the system may compete with T3 binding to receptor sites. So keep that in mind. As estrogen increases, that can also result in decreased thyroglobulin production. Thyroglobulin is the hormone that is really the essential building block of your thyroid hormone. So we can get decreased thyroid hormone production. Now, what about progesterone? Progesterone, and most of the time, if you're not getting what they call bioidentical hormones, you're getting progestin. This can result in as progesterone levels go up, because you're taking some, you typically see a reduced activity of deiodinase 2. And deiodinase 2 is the primary converter of T4 to T3 inside cells. And so if you take a lot of progesterone, what can happen is you can have enough T4 in the system, but you can start to have some hypothyroid symptoms, because as you reduce D2 activity, you get decreased conversion of T4 to T3, total T3 can go down, free T3 can go down, and you're going to have cellular or tissue hypothyroidism. Same thing that happened up here with estrogen. And the other thing that can happen is if you're not converting that T4 to T3, you might start to see an elevated level of reverse T3, okay? So does this mean that HRT is bad? Maybe, maybe not. You have to determine for you, the individual, but if you're going to take HRT, someone needs to be looking at your thyroid panel, especially if you have some hypothyroid signs and symptoms starting to develop, because it could be that your HRT is contributing to some of your hypothyroid signs and symptoms. If you are one of those people that your labs show a reduced conversion of T4 to T3 and you're on HRT, maybe you need to reduce that HRT. Maybe the goal should be to figure out why you're not producing sufficient thyroid hormone or sex hormones for your age. But if you just want to take the HRT because it makes you feel better, keep in mind that there are potential consequences to taking it. If your thyroid physiology is working fantastic, great, it's probably not a big issue, but keep that in mind. Estrogen and progesterone can be a problem, and it can impact a number of tissues. And one of those that it's cited in the literature that can really have an effect is the effect on lipid regulation and gallbladder function. So estrogen increases the cholesterol getting shoved into your bile, which can make it a bit thicker. Progesterone has been known to decrease gallbladder contraction, meaning you can't push that bile out of the gallbladder. And there is about a 60% increased risk of gallbladder dysfunction and disease in women on HRT. How about that? So that doesn't mean it's going to happen to everybody, but if the literature is showing that there's a 60% increase in gallbladder dysfunction or disease on women on HRT, maybe we should have a little bit of pause and caution. And why is that occurring? It's probably occurring because of its effect on thyroid physiology. I hope this helps. If you have any questions below, put them below the video. If you have some questions, you can always go to my website, rejuvegencenter.com, and schedule a complimentary discovery call, okay? And don't forget, I have my podcast, Thyroid Answers Podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, you can get it. And I have my book out called The Thyroid Debacle that I wrote with my friend, Dr. Kelly Halderman, all right? Again, any questions, put them below this video. Thanks.